Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I was very proud of the president. I thought he did exactly the right thing yesterday in clarifying what he had meant to say. And I think it's pretty hard. If you read the total quotes of what he said yesterday, pretty hard to have an argument with him.
What about my point? And I know that you said you thought that at the time, another report, by the way, has just come out, and I think it's fairly, interesting because it wasn't reported previously, and I think this is a bit of a Helsinki breakthrough, and that is that in the days leading up to Helsinki, the Trump administration maneuvered to constrain Russia's options. The U.S. and Israel, exerting military force in Syria and diplomatic pressure on Moscow, made clear that Putin would not have a free hand there, and that was all leading up to the summit, and anyway, it didn't really come up. But the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, announced that President Trump was scrapping Obama's policy of allowing Iran a free reign within Syria and would seek a new agreement with Russia that would move Iranian forces out of Syria altogether, which is a big deal. So that, to me, sounds like progress, just like it was just announced the remains of American soldiers from the Korean War will be coming home from North Korea next week. So, things are often a lot deeper than they appear, Mr. Speaker.
Well, look, there's no question if you look at how long, first of all, two of them, and then you look at how long they met with their staffs. As the president has said, they covered a lot of ground. I think in some areas we may have actually made real progress, and I think that's not a small thing. The thing that I'm always amazed at our liberal friends who would normally be very worried about nuclear war and all that, they don't seem to understand when the president says to them, this is the other guy on the planet who has the most nuclear weapons, and finding a way to make sure that neither of us ever get close to use them is a huge, huge deal. And I think that Trump is very sensitive to the fact that, well, Russia is a decaying power. Its population is declining. Its suicide rate is terrible. Its alcoholism rate is terrible. Its economy is actually smaller than Italy. But nonetheless, they're the only other country that has a huge number of nuclear weapons, and you have to be very careful how you deal with them.
Well, and there's also other big issues that they were dealing with, and I think they're all important. Nuclear proliferation being one of them. Syria, where men, women, and children are dying every day as that civil war continues, in part propped up by Putin and by Russia. The Iranian nuclear threat that is literally now uniting the Middle East in ways that we've never seen before, and creating an opportunity for peace probably that we've never seen before. All of these issues, I think, are need to be on the table, and if we want to have a safe and a better world.
Well, that's exactly right, and I think that's why the president took the risk of going to Helsinki. I mean, he's not a foolish person. He knows that it is more to Putin's advantage than his, but he also thought that if they could open up a serious dialogue, and apparently they had a very good meeting because it lasted twice as long as they thought it would. And I think that part of the reason that he made the mistake he did in the press conference was he was really on a high. He was feeling really good because they'd had a really positive, solid meeting. And I think that led him to be maybe a little more expansive than he should have been.
Why is it possible that after all these years of being hacked, why is it possible that they can still hack us? Why haven't we built up the cyber defenses necessary in this day and age? Because it keeps happening again and again and again.
Well, I think we have to rewrite the entire Cyber Command regulations. Currently, the Cyber Command is captured under the same bureaucratic rules as everybody else. The best hacker in the world is 1,000 times better than the fifth best hacker. And that means you've got to have a whole different approach to how you staff, a whole different approach to how you compensate people, and a whole different approach to how you think. I've met several times now with people at Carnegie Mellon who have consistently won the world hacking competition in Las Vegas. And they just think that our current models are just totally wrong. They're never going to work. And so I think we have to look at these really bright people. And one of the points they make is really good first-rate actors are a little bit weird. They don't fit into a bureaucracy. They don't fit into a military hierarchy. But they are so important, and they're so specialized.
Well, they work over. They probably stay up all night, and they do things in the dark, and you can't tell them to come to work at 8 o'clock and leave at 4:30. It's not how they roll.
That's right. That's right. And you can't bore them. I mean, you give them something that fascinates them, and they'll work for, 96 hours nonstop. Put them in a room where they got to do boring bureaucratic work, and they'll die.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think one of the things we should have is a complete redesign of the Cyber Command, which is clearly not capable today of doing its job.
Let me go to this question. What do you make of the left and their absolute freak out over the summit when you have all these important issues that were discussed? I've always been a firm believer the president didn't drop $150 billion in cash and other currencies, in this meeting with Putin. The president did basically threaten Putin's entire economy by suggesting that Angela Merkel stop making these energy deals with Vladimir Putin and creating such energy and dependence on Russia. But at the end of the day, we got 9/11 comparisons, Pearl Harbor comparisons, a former CIA director, communist, that is calling the president, a traitor and accusing him of treason. It's just a typical left-wing outrage.
Sure. Look, I mean, first of all, let me just say that I devoted my whole newsletter today, both at Gingrich Productions and at FoxNews.com, to the objective reality that by any standard, Trump has been so much tougher than Obama that it is absurd to in any way suggest that he is somehow in Putin's pocket, but Obama wasn't. And it's just unbelievable difference. Second, I point out that the very guys, you mentioned one of them, Brennan, another one's Jim Clapper, the very guys who are attacking Trump were the guys who were supposed to be protecting us who failed totally. I mean, what standing does either Brennan or Clapper have for lecturing anybody else? They were in charge. They were supposed to defend America. They felt, in that period, Trump was a candidate. He didn't have a responsibility. And I think that the truth is Dan Coates and others right now are building up a much stronger effort, but until we reform the system, it's not going to quite work. But the third thing, which you and I have talked about several times, and I'm going to sound boring to those of our listeners who heard this before, you have on the left a group of people who have been through a psychic trauma, losing on election night. They're suffering the political equivalent of PTSD. These are the people who were standing outside the Supreme Court the other night. As you remember, Clifton and I were at the White House when they introduced Judge Kavanaugh, and literally
fill in the blank.
Standing outside the Supreme Court, they had four cards. Any of the four, all four were bad by definition.
Well, the same thing was for the summit, right?
And then, yeah, they knew Trump would do something terrible. They just didn't know what it was. And I think some of the things what Brennan said was so despicable that the idea that, for that matter, what Comey said today, you can't vote Republican and be a patriot. I mean, if people want to know how sick the deep state is, that's the director of the FBI. That's the head of the CIA. These people are crazed. They represent a loony left. They are radical extremists. I
want to talk to you. I want to pick it up there when we get back. Because I want to talk about why this makes 2018, to me, the most important midterm in our lifetime. Newt Gingrich is with us, by the way, author of the bestseller, Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback. So next week on this program, we're going to begin identifying those Senate races, those House races that will tip the balance of power in Washington. We continue with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, author of the book, Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback. I always go back to what works. And I think a lot of this election is about what the Democrats want. Open borders, keep Obamacare, take the crumbs back, impeach Trump, and basically make his life an investigative hell. I don't see anything positive for the American people. But in off-year elections, they're tough. What's the best strategy?
Well, I think the best strategy is to slow it down make clear what the choice is. And there's basically four choices. Choice number one is we cut taxes, we cut regulations. We have the best economic growth since Reagan. We have the lowest black unemployment rate in history, lowest Latino unemployment rate. You like jobs? Do you like take-home pay? You like a growing economy? Vote Republican. If you'd like to go back to the Obama weak economy, higher black unemployment, higher Latino unemployment, less money in your pocket, vote Democrat. Second, we believe that sanctuary cities are dangerous because that lets people like MS-13 in. We believe that people like Keith Ellison, who want an open border, are just plain crazy. You couldn't function as a country with an open border. We believe that we need a sound, solid immigration policy that is pro-legal immigration, but that cuts off illegal immigration. The Democrats believe let them all come in, we'll absorb all of them, the more the better, no ICE, no borders, no controls. So you choose. Third, they're now off on this kick about government-run health care, which is a disaster. I mean, tell me what government does so well that you actually wanted to take care of your personal health. But this is going to be a theme everywhere in the country.
So let me ask this question.
People like Bernie Sanders.
So there are people that are listening to you now, and I know what I would do, but I have a hard time saying it because some of these Republicans didn't keep their promises. They're very weak. They're afraid to fight. But the option is going to be, they're there. They're not going to vote to impeach Trump. They'll kind of be brought kicking and screaming, supporting the good parts of his agenda, whether they like it or not, versus a Democrat. But people are saying, why should I vote for a rhino? What do you say to them?
I say to them exactly what I said to you on the show the other week when I said that 2 minutes before Trump introduced his Supreme Court choice, close your eyes, imagine it was Hillary Clinton, and imagine that she was proposing the second radical Supreme Court justice to fundamentally redesign America. Now, if you're willing to take that risk, if you don't mind open borders, if you don't mind higher taxes, if you don't mind more unemployment, if you don't mind people who are radical extremists being in charge, stay home. But when you do, and all that stuff happens, yeah, we have some candidates who aren't perfect, but we also, on balance, even our imperfect candidates aren't crazy. And I think look at their side, it's scary.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. We appreciate your time.